otherwise I'm just going to start picking the brains of these super ripped, smart women. Dr. Lane, first question's for you, because you're the other medical doctor up here, but they obviously just heard my opinion about hormone therapy. But when it comes to fitness, are there particular supplements when it comes to fitness? And then can you just touch on your thoughts on hormone therapy?
Yes, so that's a great question. Supplementation can be very helpful, especially for women's fitness and women that are transitioning. And there's been a ton of research with creatine, super easy, 5 grams of creatine, very well researched. There's 2 others that I think are very important. Fish oil, omega-3 fish oil, which again, there's a lot of research, and also there's some research that is indicating that it's even more beneficial for women than it is for men, which is unusual. I'm sure that will maybe catch up. But the third one is something called urolithin A. And a lot of people discussed mitophagy and mitochondria and mitochondrial health. Urolithin A is a lactamin, whatever that is. But yeah, say that. So lactannins, and 40% of people, and where do you get lactannins from? Walnuts or pomegranates, a lot of things that are really rich in polyphenols, but 40% of individuals cannot make it. And so taking a urolithin A supplement will really, really help. And what I love about this is I'm very particular about supplements that I recommend. There's a ton of good data. There's at least a decade of research on urolithin A, and that would be 500 milligrams once to twice a day. And that's actually great for anybody. It has a metabolic effect that is somewhat similar to exercise. So just by taking urolithin A.
Okay, hormone therapy.
We use it all the time in my practice. Start early, and question from the audience? I heard something.
Yeah, she said, can you repeat the question?
So hormone therapy, what do I think about hormone therapy?
Oh, she's asking you to repeat your 3 supplements.
The 3 supplements, creatine, omega-3 fatty acids, and urolithin A.
Urolithin A.
Really good. I'm very into it these days. And then hormone therapy is phenomenal. And I will say in our practice, we will start, again, if a woman is menstruating, we don't start on estrogen, but we will often start on testosterone or progesterone. And we see that women do better actually with higher free testosterone. Body composition, things, because we have to think about it. When we look at lab values, that's what's considered, quote, normal. And even the ranges, while things that are typically thought of as inflammatory, for example, HSCRP, I think you mentioned HSCRP, there's some inflammatory markers that we can recognize that when those are too high, that's a problem. But what about the things that potentially have augmenting benefits, like testosterone, where for women, I think that the recommendations are just much too low. And I think we see that reflected in blood work.
Well, there's no FDA-approved form of testosterone replacement therapy for women, if that just tells you the state of women's health. So,
very behind.
Okay, next question, Kristen. I know you've experimented with the carnivore diet, and Dr. Lyon and Tara, you can totally weigh in too. Can you give us a pro and a con of the carnivore diet when it comes to women's fitness?
So I'd love to. I actually did my first 30-day carnivore experiment in December because I've actually put some of my clients on carnivore. I'm a nutritional therapist, and it's really, really good. I'd say the primary pro that I see in my practice is that it can be really good for addressing underlying issues with the gut. So it's really the ultimate elimination diet, and so you see people resolving all sorts of inflammatory markers and symptoms, whether it be autoimmune disorders or other things. And that would be probably the primary thing. But conversely to that, I always say in my practice, every single person is bio-individual. So we can't just assume that one thing that works for one person is going to work markedly well for the next person. Me, for example, TMI, I had digestive distress, namely diarrhea, most of the time that I did carnivore. It was like hard for me. And I thought, okay, am I having too much protein? Am I consuming so much fat? And ultimately what I concluded after a 30-day experiment, you guys, just for me, is that my body really likes fiber. It's just me. Now, other people would have the opposite experience with it, and they will thrive on carnivore. So one of the things, the primary thing I'm talking about tomorrow is really learning how to take risks and experiment on yourself. That I wouldn't have known that about myself, that my body really likes fiber, unless I would have done this 30-day experiment. And maybe someday I'll try it again. And maybe the state of my gut health will be different. So all of a sudden carnivore will work for me in a way it didn't when I did it in December. But so I encourage people to really experiment on their own bodies and see, is this something that works or not?
Love that. Tara, you have anything to add on that?
So in terms of fitness and Okay, in terms of and carnivore and those kind of things, keto was, most of my clients were keto for a couple, maybe 2-3 years. And one of the patterns I noticed, can you guys, it's a little bit cute. One of the patterns that I noticed was that when people had a lot of inflammation, because I do blood, stool, hair mineral, some of the deeper testing, I noticed that the people who had a lot of inflammation when they came into carnivore would have performance increases in the gym. That's just been my correlation that I've noticed in clients, because some people would have dramatic drops in athletic performance on keto or carnivore, and some people would be like, wow, I had the most powerful lifts of my life, And that was the one correlation that I noticed, was like inflammation. That they already had some inflammation, that inflammation dropped, it would make sense too that you would have higher athletic performance. So again, it's very individual. Some people, some of you I'm sure, have done keto and had better athletic performance. For me personally, athletic performance went way down on keto. And I have not done carnivore. I don't feel like I need to do carnivore, and it doesn't intuitively call to me personally. I thrive on an intermittent fasting, higher protein, low to moderate carb, balanced fat. So, of course, I have clients on keto right now. I've used carnivore as a coach, as an intervention. So, yeah, but that's just in terms of athletic performance. That's the only correlation that I've noticed.
Yeah, I love the insight from all of you. I eat a very meat-based diet. I've tried carnivore for periods of time. I think the pro of it is that it makes people prioritize nutrient-dense animal foods, which we're talking about fitness, right? And we're telling women to eat more protein, and Dr. Lyon wants them to eat 30 to 50 grams at least 2-3 times a day, so that I call it like keto for dummies. It's because that's all you can eat, right? I do think there could be some people who, with autoimmune conditions, that it is a very simplified ketogenic diet, but it's very restrictive, right? When you can only eat animal foods. And so, I think that's a con to it. And I love what these women have said. You have to find what works for you. And if you don't feel well eating that way, it works until it doesn't. Try something different. So, okay, we have a question over here.
Yeah, not sure. Okay, I guess you can hear me now. So outside of blood work that's commonly ordered, such as CMP, CBC, etc., what would you consider to be not as commonly requested, particularly for female blood work that you yourselves would recommend at least once a year?
So I would say hormones are not routinely tested. So obviously that, and Dr. Jamie discussed that. Another marker that I think is really important for everybody, including women, is ApoB. And that is a marker for cardiovascular risk. I think everyone should know their Lp(a) status. I think that that's all really important. Fasting insulin. I do think looking at, this is kind of going to be surprising, but I do think when you're looking at a CBC, looking at the eosinophil count, often in my practice we treat a lot of digestive issues. And I know that that's not directly related to women, but digestive issues we see across the board impact overall inflammation, they impact your ability to absorb nutrients. It's not just what you eat, it's what you absorb. And so looking at an eosinophil count above 2.5 typically alerts me to some kind of infection. And I think that that's not routinely done.
The only other one that Dr. Lyon did mention that I think can be really useful, especially for women, is looking at the liver markers. So looking at AST and ALT, and the reason I say that is I run a lot of detox courses in my practice, and especially when people eat a higher fat diet, and if they have a lot of toxicity in their body, sometimes their liver function can be poor, so that might be one thing that I would look at as well.
Okay. Question over here.
Yes, I was wondering if you thought bioidentical hormone replacement therapy was better than regular, and also if you are on it, is there an optimal time length to be on it, or is it safe to be on it, or when is it safe to be off it?
So there's a lot of misunderstanding with hormone replacement therapy, and bioidentical is a hot word. Bioidentical simply means that it's the same hormone that your body makes naturally, and people think that it is more natural. With that being said, we have pharmaceutical grade bioidentical hormones. So a lot of people think that bioidentical means it's compounded. But we have pharmaceutical grade, tested, FDA approved bioidentical forms of hormone replacement therapy. When it comes to progesterone, that really does matter. Like I said, in the studies with the risk of breast cancer, the slightly increased risk of breast cancer was only seen, it was very small, it was only seen in women who took both estrogen and progesterone, so these women had a uterus, but they took progestin, so they were taking norethindrone acetate and other synthetic progestins. In my practice, I only use oral micronized progesterone, or the trade name is Prometrium, and it's been studied at 200 milligrams, either cyclic or continuous, to protect the uterine lining. So the recommendation is to start hormone therapy at the time of menopause, reevaluate on an annual basis. There's no arbitrary reason to stop after 10 years or to stop after age 65. I have women in their 7th and 80th decade of life that are continuing hormone therapy. It's an individualized discussion between you and your doctor. There's not an arbitrary reason to stop. But Dr. Lyon, anything to add on that?
I totally agree with that.
Okay, questioner?
Yeah, thank you. So, Dr. Seaman, you said in your lecture that if you have a uterus, you must take progesterone with estrogen. So if a woman does not have a uterus, then you do not prescribe progesterone for that patient?
Great question. So if you don't have a uterus, you can still take progesterone. There still can be benefits to taking progesterone. With the loss of progesterone, you get an increase in postmenopausal anxiety because one of the progesterone metabolites works as a neurosteroid. It's very calming, right? Ask any woman that's in luteal phase or during a pregnancy. Progesterone is this like, makes you kind of sleepy, and it's great for sleep. The sleep disturbances that happen with loss of progesterone in perimenopause and menopause are significant because we've told you numerous times how good sleep is and why it's important. So progesterone, even if you don't have a uterus, can be helpful for insomnia and sleep-related disorders, sometimes for anxiety. There are indications for progesterone, even if you don't have a uterus. Great question, great question. Okay, so Dr. Lyon, you talked about how we are focusing on obesity and fat. We're focusing on the wrong thing. Most people aren't over fat, they're under muscled. When it comes to fitness, how do I know if I have enough lean tissue?
That is a great question. So lean tissue, when you see lean body mass, and you guys have all heard lean body mass, right? Everyone, that's what people refer to. That actually includes everything. That includes muscle, bone, organs, and a part of lean body mass, only a portion of that is muscle. So I think that that's really important to understand because people use that interchangeably. Lean body mass and skeletal muscle is actually different. So skeletal muscle, your question was, what is the best way to measure it?
How do I measure it? How do I know if I have enough of it? You said we're under muscle.
We do not have a great way of measuring skeletal muscle right now, but I think in the next 5 years we will. Typically, the gold standard right now is DEXA. Everyone has heard of DEXA, but what DEXA looks at body fat and then extrapolates the rest. And it looks at lean body mass. It doesn't show you skeletal muscle. And actually in my book, we utilized the InBody and we ran it against different algorithms to come up with what we thought would be great, looking at something called an appendicular skeletal mass index. It's not something that you need to know or remember. So the DEXA is the best way to do it right now. In the next 5 years, we're going to start seeing something called D3 creatine. D3 creatine is a pill that people are going to be able to take, and they're going to be able to test the amount of skeletal muscle that they have based on a urine. And it is used right now. Bill Evans and someone else at UCS Davis, they're really leading the charge on this. And once they can get that into the hands of physicians, it's going to change everything. And here's one more important thing, is I don't know if you guys have heard this, but people say it doesn't matter how much muscle mass you have, as long as you're strong. Have you guys heard that? That is the common reiteration of what is happening on social media. That's actually not true. The reason people believe that strength is more important than actual mass, or the quality of mass, is because we have not been directly testing mass. Now that we are going to directly be able to test mass, it's going to change. We are going to be at the precipice of a new understanding of being able to actually identify how much skeletal muscle, where the issues are, above and beyond, say, sarcopenia, which is lack of skeletal muscle mass and function. So we are going to be at the precipice of this. In the next 5 years, we're going to see very different data. So I know that didn't directly answer your question. The best you can do right now, unless, of course, you're going to do a CT or MRI, that is challenging to do, unless maybe your Dr. Sean's patient is not routinely done that way. So
at, so depending on where you live, and I've been fascinated by this because I have clients all over the country, some states, it's really easy to get a DEXA. You can go to Upgrade PI and get a DEXA here. In Minnesota, where I'm at, there's a place called DEXA Fit where you can get a DEXA. But the thing that I recommend for my clients, because it's probably half the price in Minnesota, is something called a bod pod. And I'd say that's number 2 behind a DEXA because it's really accurate, but it's not going to give you visceral fat. It's not going to give your muscle mass and fat distribution in your body like the DEXA Fit does, or DEXA Scan. But a bod pod is another option, and depending on the state you're in, a DEXA might be more expensive, or a bod pod. I have a client in California who she went and compared them, and a bod pod there was twice the price of a DEXA. So just look in your area for either of those because they're both good measures.
For any of you, when it comes to body composition, what is an ideal body fat percentage, or what markers on a DEXA scan should they be looking at when they're deciding, when it comes to lean tissue, fat tissue, and am I healthy?
This, I believe, depends on your baseline body composition. So some individuals' baseline body composition sit very comfortably at 20-25%. Some other people sit very comfortably, even women, at 12 to 14%. As long as they are menstruating, there's a lot of very athletic women that can menstruate and have normal thyroid function, have all, are sleeping well, regular periods. I think it's very challenging. I think the best way to think about it is, where were you at when you were in the best shape of your life? And then, how did your blood work look? Were your triglycerides under control? Was your insulin under control? Was your blood glucose under control? I think right now, percentage of body fat, we can identify that 30% is considered obese, but where should we really sit? We probably should be much lower than the recommendation. And I say this very cautiously because I think it depends. We just haven't focused on muscle, but women could easily be between 18% or a little less. And I know that people are thinking, gosh, that's pretty low. And then I would just challenge you and say, where would we be at if we were optimally training? Where would we be at if we were optimally consuming food? What would our body composition look like? Because it does take a little bit of effort. So I think it's much lower.
I'll just share, I feel a little awkward saying, but I'm just what you just described. I just went and got a DEXA scan on Monday. I have not been tracking food or trying that. I mean, I train like a beast, if you guys follow me on social media. I hit it hard in the mornings, but I sleep really well. I menstruate, I have amazing energy levels, good mood, I'm healthy. And with that, I haven't had a DEXA since December 2021, 13.5% body fat. And I was just like, really? I'm not even, I don't know, I'm not going after it. I do intermittent fast, but I eat. You guys saw me, I was chowing down back there, And I really think it's because of muscle. I just, and I'm hitting those intensity levels regularly. So I'm just saying, when I was looking at the DEXA report, it was saying for women in my age group, it was something like under 39% or 30. I was like, no, I'm sorry, but I just don't think if I was 38% body fat that I would be enjoying the health experience that I currently enjoy. So I agree with Dr. Lyon, the recommendations are kind of I would go off of just getting, if you have a DEXA where you live, oh man, they're so awesome. InBody, you can find pretty much anywhere now. InBody did just also come out with an at-home scale. I'm experimenting with that with clients right now. So I don't know, a lot of times those at-home scales are not very great, but InBody is pretty reputable, so we'll see what they've got. But I would say just continuously, don't stress yourself out over it, but over time, every few months to 6 months to a year, is it going in a favorable direction, or at least maintaining where you feel really good? I would just go off of that.
So for complete and honest comparison, I lost my period at 17% body fat and can live 17% by DEXA, and live very comfortably more at 20-22%. So, but I think women are always trying to achieve this extremely lean physique. They see this physique competitor on Instagram and they're like, damn, she looks amazing, right? She's working really hard. Tara, this question's for you. A lot of women don't want to lift weights because they don't want to look bulky like a man. I certainly can resonate with that idea. I was a collegiate athlete, lifted tons of weights, and after college, society, really, I couldn't wait for my muscles to go away. I wanted my quads to shrink and then ended up with prediabetes. What is the reasonable expectation for gaining lean tissue when a woman's starting resistance training?
I will say that I grew up overweight since like 3rd grade, and then I became a marathoner, a runner. Okay, I hated weightlifting, so please know that. Okay, I was just like, when I was married, my husband would try to get me, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I hate this. Okay, so I can relate. That was a long period of even my adult life, and I can say now, I'll answer that specifically, but I just have to say, you are most likely not going to like weightlifting when you first start. I would say 1 in a million people is just gonna love it because you do not have the neurological connection to your muscles to really enjoy it. Okay, so you're gonna be trying to do, you're like, I don't even know what am I doing? Like, what am I supposed to be getting out of this? It's maddening. Okay, so if you don't like weightlifting, surprise, you just like everybody else if you haven't been doing it. Those of you who have been doing it for a while, I know y'all love it because you have a neurological connection to your muscles and you actually can do it and you're proficient at it. So just have to say that. In terms of reasonable expectations, what I like to just tell women is as simple as this. Try as hard as you freaking can to be like a He-Man level of muscle and you'll gain like this much. Okay? That's just pretty much how it is. So it's like, story of our lives, because all of us live, I'm sure you guys did it too. It's like, well, I don't want to get too bulky or I don't want to look like, whatever. And I'm just like, girl, as if. I want to see you try. Like, it is so, this is like my life, you know what I mean? I love it. To me, the gym is like recess now. Like, I like bloodthirst for it. I'm like a dog with my tongue hanging out, like, yeah, like, it's fun for me now. It wasn't. But I'm saying, this is like, and I'm highly trained, I'm educated in it. It's like a passion meets profession for me. So it's like, I go hard, right? It is, and I think that there is something with my body type that is more muscle prone, So it's like, for women, try as hard as you can because guess what? Remember that 13 and a half, I'm talking a girl who was like overweight her whole life and nothing ever worked and I felt exasperated and nothing will ever work, to now I'm like, I don't know how I'm 13.5% body fat. I'm telling you, it's because of muscle. So try as hard as you can because it makes everything easier. You can eat food and not have to worry about it. The more muscle you have, it is the golden ticket to optimize health for women.
Dr. Lang, you talked about the importance of protein and leucine for stimulating muscle protein synthesis, but when it comes to training and lifting weights, how often should a woman be training, and maybe in what way, to optimize lean mass?
So I think that there's a few things to point out. Tara is highly trained, and she talks about fasting. She is a metabolic furnace. I think that when you are just starting out, fasting is likely not ideal. Fasting, one of the things that you have to think about is how are you going to prioritize dietary protein? And typically, the average female is eating around 68 grams of protein a day. And I told you that the ideal for an individual, so let's say you double the RDA, you should be getting at least 100 grams of protein. So at least 100 grams of protein would be the bare minimum to, I think, really be somewhat more optimized. The average female is getting around 70 grams of protein, 68 grams of protein. So fasting, I have to say, unless you're highly trained in a metabolic machine, then I wouldn't do that. I will also say that there's 2 ways to stimulate muscle, which is what I talked about. Here's a great thing. If you are under eating protein, simply by adding more protein to your diet, you will likely start to see some muscle retention without training, which is fascinating. Are you going to look like a Hulk? No. But are you going to improve muscle mass if you are deficient or under eating protein? Yes. When it comes to training, I think a well-designed program, when someone is a novice trainer or a beginner, they will have a much greater influence and impact on skeletal muscle. What are the things needed for skeletal muscle? You need input or stimulus, you need gene expression, and then you need muscle protein synthesis. When you are untrained, then the more activity, it could just be bands. It doesn't actually have to be lifting weights, you do have to lift resistance, and eventually everybody should be doing that because you do want to progress, you do want to increase volume, you do want to progress. So I think that it's great if you can do it 6 days a week. Again, it's an overall stimulation when you're just starting out, whether it's 10 to 20 sets per muscle group. Sounds like a lot, but that's kind of where people think about in hypertrophy for a week. So figuring out how to get that in, but ultimately getting a well-designed program, starting where you're at. If you could just do 3 days a week, I think it would be phenomenal. And then I would say not doing long sessions of cardio, like zone 2 cardio. Cardiovascular activity is really helpful for muscle health, mitochondrial health, but doing some kind of high-intensity interval training, and that can be different for everybody. If you are highly untrained, maybe it's sitting up and standing really fast. Doing something that increases your output is really, really important. That could be just 1 day a week. And again, I don't think that there's any reason not to do those things.
That's a great point. Kristen and Tara, for your female clients, what role do cardio or high-intensity interval training play in optimal fitness and body composition?
So my clients, I tell all of them, if I can get you strength training at least twice a week and just walking 10,000 steps a day, I'm happy to start. If you want to add cardio on because you love it, if you'd like to run, if you'd like to do a HIIT class, that's great. But number one, you have to be strength training because it's the thing that moves the needle the most in terms of your metabolic health. Your resting metabolic rate, which is essentially a really good marker of how good is my metabolism, your resting metabolic rate makes up about 60 to 70% of your metabolism. And so your resting metabolic rate is a direct function of how much lean tissue do you have on your body, how muscular are you? And so just kind of dovetailing off what Dr. Ryan said, most of the women who hire me start somewhere between 30 to 40. I have some female clients, even their body fat is over 50%. There was one woman who I worked with a couple of years ago that, just like in the example Dr. Ryan gave, she just said, listen, all I can focus on food. I know you want me to strength train. I'm not there yet. I can't do it. Let's just focus on the food. I took her from 40% body fat down to under 30% body fat. She did not lose a pound of muscle, and she did not work out that entire time. It was like 4 or 5 months. And it's because I had her eating 130 to 140 grams of protein per day. Because it literally allows you to maintain tissue. So I can let Terry answer first for her clients, but.
Walk as much as you can. I am not a fan of like intense cardio for fat loss. I will give you an example of myself. I used to run. I ran the Boston Marathon. I qualified I was running a 7:30 pace for 26 miles. Do you know how much beast mode running you have to do to run that fast for 26 miles? So I have done all the cardio, okay? The hour-long stair stepper sessions, all of that. I am the most effortlessly lean in my life by only walking. I have not run in like probably 2 years, except for maybe like to my car, you know. And I do walk on an incline, like a big old incline, and I go fast. Like I say I'm training for hiking in the summer because it's cold in Utah in the winters, right? So, and I've been pushing that. That's kind of fun. It gamifies it. So it is kind of like a brisk walking. And I walk a lot, but like, basically there's two things. First of all, if you have a lot of weight to lose, I'm sorry, do not run. Anybody who understands biomechanics, I'm not trying to be mean, you are going to destroy your body. It is like too much weight on your joints. You know, might have misalignments on things, you're gonna get injured, then you're not gonna be able to do stuff. So please just walk. If you have a significant amount of weight to lose, walking works off mostly fat oxidation. What are you trying to do? Burn fat. So it really is the easier way, is the better way. The other thing is, like, when you're doing a lot of intense cardio, your hunger goes through the roof. Do you know how easy it is to eat like an extra 250 calories that your run that like blasted you? You maybe burn 200 calories on it, and you add like a freaking granola bar, and now it's gone. You know, it's not an efficient way to lose weight for most people. Walking, yes. So if you mix walking with lifting, and I do what she says, I do one high intensity interval training session a week. It's 21 minutes long. I just pick 6 exercises. I'm slamming balls, I'm ropes, I'm sprinting. It's fun. I love that day. I do that on Fridays.
So you lift weights like Tara, you guys. It's a cardiovascular workout, okay?
That's true. And one quick hit session a week, but I walk almost an hour every day. So just sharing, and I do recommend that.
Okay, question to this side.
People who've had ovaries removed and uterus removed and gallbladder removed, any suggestions?
When it comes to fitness,
The whole shebang.
the whole shebang. So, menopause before age 45 is considered premature menopause. Menopause before age 40 is considered premature ovarian failure. These people have a significantly reduced lifespan if they don't initiate hormone therapy. So if you have your ovaries out, whether it was benign cause, maybe you had just a cyst or something along those lines, you need to talk to your doctor. If you've had both ovaries removed, particularly before the natural age of menopause, 100% of those patients need hormone therapy. Dr. Lyon, you agree with that statement? Yeah.
Totally.
That's a very straightforward one. Yeah. Question to this side?
Hi. With your patients or with your clients that you train, do you recommend or have you used CGMs? And what do you recommend, or do you ever recommend people using CGMs? And like, should they sign up with say NutriSense or someplace where they're actually being, coached or supported, or how do they use that?
Continuous glucose monitors when it comes to fitness?
Someone has them.
I'm wearing mine right now. I'm a real big fan of the NutriSense. I don't know that there's any single thing that you could use as a tool at home to teach you more about your body than a continuous glucose monitor. They are so valuable, and the number of my clients who are like, I am so glad you finally made me put this thing in my arm because I can't believe how certain things affect me. For example, I'll have a client working with me, and Neil just told me this recently. He said, I've been working with you for so long, you finally made me put one in my arm, and just for a day, I went back to eating how I used to eat before I hired you, and I was like, oh my God, his lines were like this all day because he was on that blood sugar roller coaster that I've taught him about. And he said, I can't believe I used to live like that. So I also had a general counsel in Texas put one in her arm. She was in an extremely stressful meeting around the time of COVID, and there was all sorts of fights about what they were going to do in the company, and her blood sugar went up during that meeting as if she was eating a brownie, and it was stress. So just learning about how stress, and so she and I worked on like breathing techniques, and how can she meditate more, and how can she center her body during stress so that her blood sugar isn't going up. I'm sorry, if my blood sugar goes up, I better be eating a donut. I would rather like be able to eat something. So I think it's an amazing tool. I also have learned about my body from wearing them so much. My blood sugar plummets when I do acupuncture. It plummets when I meditate. It plummets when I do breath work. I never would have known any of those things unless I would have had it in to see the data.
I totally agree with that. One of the things that I think is really important if you use a continuous glucose monitor is when you see your blood sugar go up, actually get up and move. You will see that glucose disposal happens in skeletal muscle. You can prove it to yourself just by getting up and moving, and it will go down. And the other thing is, it's really fascinating to see the metabolic changes based on the environment. Blood sugar is going to go up when you train. Blood sugar is also going to go up in stressful environments.
But that's such a good point, because if you see a spike on your CGM when you're training, great, your body's putting energy out because you need to lift 300 pounds. If it is in a boardroom while you're sitting in a chair and it goes up, that's an issue, right? If you're sitting on the couch eating a donut and it goes up, that's an issue. Your body has put out something to increase. There's lots of hormones that raise glucose. There's really only one, insulin, that brings it down. But it can happen normal. So, some people argue that CGMs are a problem because you're making this into a pathology when it's a normal response. But this is such a good thing to delineate that if you're going to put glucose into your system, go use it. And so that's just a fantastic point when it comes to CGMs. Tara, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I use these. I agree with Kristen. I think it's the most valuable tool as to an insight into your body on the daily that we have. Super eye-opening. I recommend every single one of you get one. Like, I wear one too, and it is wow. And I just wanted to add these couple of things. I do use NutriSense personally, or if you you already are in like the diabetic, if you have diabetes, type 2, well obviously type 1, but if you have type 2, or sometimes doctors will prescribe them if you're like pushing, knocking the door, so you can check that route too, because they're a little pricey. But I have a client right now who we got her fasting glucose down to like normal-ish, right? Upper 80s, lower 90s, but her A1C is still like 5.6, I think, last time we checked. And I was like, dude, there's something going on with your blood sugar. Like, will you please get a CGM? So she got one. She's been eating super well. Her blood sugar is going from like the 80s to, it went to every single time by itself or with other thing into the 190s when she ate steak. She must have a food sensitivity to it. Okay, maybe you have some insights. I would love to hear your insights. So that's just an example. Kara Collier is the dietitian from Nutrisense. She came on my podcast and she was saying that, she's like, we see some people have almost no blood sugar rise from bananas. And then somebody else will spike like crazy from a banana. So they're, it's kind of like knocking down this, like, this is a low glycemic food. This is a high glycemic food. You can test, like, okay, when I was sleep deprived and ate a sweet potato, that happened. When I had lots of sleep and I ate a sweet potato, that happened. If I ate a sweet potato post-training with some butter or steak, that happened. So you can find out, like, what is going on in your own body. If you like biohacking and optimization, it is the ultimate tool for that.
So one of the things with the continuous glucose monitor that we have to understand is only looking at glucose. There's cortisol, there's epinephrine, there's norepinephrine, there's glucagon, there's all kinds of things that end up are circulating, but we're only looking at glucose. And that becomes really important to understand because it's not quite the whole picture. When you eat something, for example, protein, so the pancreas releases insulin. Dietary protein causes a phase 1 insulin response, which is what it's supposed to do because insulin, protein is necessary for muscle protein synthesis. The question becomes, how much glucose variability are you having over time? How many of these ebbs and flows? Those are problems because every time your blood sugar goes up and then it drops, you do have an increase in these stress hormones. So glucose variability over time is a problem, but the thing about dietary protein that we have to understand is it is not a phase 2 response. So your body's not having to make more insulin to lower, quote, blood sugar from these amino acids. And I think that that's really important to understand because people will say, I eat protein and my blood sugar goes up. Well, yes, because these amino acids, that's what it does. These amino acids are necessary for gluconeogenesis, which is the generation of glucose, but you will get a little rise in glucose.
Okay, so steak is not cake, is that what you said?
I like that.
Okay, we are over time. We'll take one last question and then we're going to be done.
I am 56 years old, postmenopausal. Lower it a little bit. So my thoughts are, I like to get up and work out early in the mornings, to go to the gym, lift weights. Cardio is walking on an incline or walking outside. So recommendations out there with influencers seem to be all over the place. Like I'm going to crash my hormones, which my hormones aren't great right now. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, if I'm doing myself a disservice.
Let me summarize your question to make sure you're asking, working out early in the morning, will it crash your hormones?
Yeah, for postmenopausal, is there any?
If you're postmenopausal.
Yeah, for any contraindications of that.
So once you have gone through menopause, nothing will make you premenopausal again. Nothing. We have no known way. Now, I have heard of women who think they're menopausal, make some lifestyle changes and start menstruating again. So they may have actually just been really close and they weren't ovulatory because of inflammation and lifestyle changes, okay? But it doesn't, there's no known way to turn the ovaries back on and put you back into fertility. So once you're menopausal, you're menopausal. So the estrogen, you're quote-unquote estrogen dominant, so estrogen's very low, but progesterone's even lower. Some women lose androgens. Some women can sometimes maintain androgen production. A lot of it depends on your body composition and how you're training. But your sex hormones are low, and you heard my lecture what happens with growth hormone. It's going down, cortisol's going up. So there are a lot of hormonal derangements, and your resiliency to lifestyle things and things you can control go down. So you have to start making better choices. Dr. Lane, you have anything to add to that for a postmenopausal woman not taking hormones?
So you should be training. whatever you're hearing, and this is part of kind of that mass media chaos machine, you should be training. You should be training as hard as you can, you should be putting in effort, and you should never be afraid to train.
I just want to add that it's super good for your circadian rhythm to work out first thing in the morning, especially with you walking outside, getting those rays of sunlight in your eyes. Like, it's incredibly beneficial. The only thing I would say is, like, if you feel like it's driving you into the ground, right? Like, and what I mean by that is, like, after you get done with the workout, for the most part, after you've, the first little bit, if you haven't been working out, you're going to feel tanked. But after you've been consistently working out for a while, you should feel energized from your workout. So after it's been a month or two max, of like really, if you're not feeling like alive and energized from it, you're pushing too hard. So, and a very simple, I work with women of all ages, and I have found such widely different responses from postmenopausal women on that. And so I'd say if you're feeling good, and you got no problem with it, for one, it's really good for your circadian rhythm. You're getting it done early in the day, it's over with, getting the sunlight, all of those things. If there's no problem, don't let social media make you think that there's a problem that you don't have. Stay connected to your own body, and if it's tanking you and you can't recover, cool, then maybe you can try having breakfast first or something, but otherwise I would just keep doing you.
Tara, you had a great post on social media recently. Training hard makes life easier, right? As we age, the ability just to go up and down the stairs, the ability to get up out of a chair, the ability to, so it's never too late. Those things are so important. We run ahead of schedule all day long, you guys, so we get to go 6 minutes over. These women deserve it, right? Can we get a round of applause?